Jesus always spoke to them in parables, the Gospels tell us. Perhaps that's because people in the East lived very close together. They didn't have separate bedrooms and big houses where they could space themselves from each other. And so they had developed a way of living, a sort of an etiquette that would keep them from direct confrontation too often. And so they talked in more poetic ways, telling stories like parables. Like the Japanese do, who live so close together. They've developed a whole way of being courteous to each other so that they can live peaceably together. So the parables often go over our heads because we're a much more direct people. We tell it like it is, we say, right? We don't beat around the bush. But the problem with parables is that a parable has one point and everything else is detail. Some people take this parable and try to get a picture of what hell may be like, a place of heat and torment where you're always thirsty. And so the man in hell says, "Give me a drop of water." But that's not the point of this parable. The parable has only one point. Jesus is not condemning the rich man because of his wealth. He's not praising the poor sick man because he was patient in his suffering. The point of the parable is that the man who had the ability to alleviate the poor man's suffering was indifferent to the poor man at his gate. He didn't notice him. And this is a problem that all of us face, indifference to each other. Sometimes we pass people like ships in the night, no recognition. Recently, when we were on vacation, one of the things I noticed in the country we were, that any time a stranger walked into the breakfast room of an overnight place, a motel, they nodded and said hello to everybody in the room, even though they weren't acquainted with them at all. They just happened to be staying in the place. And yet we so often pass each other every day with no recognition. This is indifference. We don't have to enter into great conversations with people. Just greeting people or giving them a nod is enough to make a person's day. People need to be recognized for who they are, a child of God. And we don't have to preach that to them. We just have to live that way with them. And unfortunately, this indifference becomes systemic. Look at all the suffering people of the world who are starving, and we, as a nation, or many nations, do nothing about it. Sudan, Gaza, all over the world there is mass starvation, and nations are just talking about it, thinking about it, doing nothing about it. Indifference begins to be done away with by personal encounters. And since we can do nothing about the systemic problem, we have the obligation to work on the individual acts of love. Because the message of today's parable is that the opposite of love is not hatred. Hatred takes energy. You have to really work up hatred. The opposite of love is indifference.